So before we start learning tonight, just a notice, lest I forget at the end of the Shiur, and sometimes I would forget. So next week, Sunday, we won't have a Shiur. I'm going to be away. I'm going to be in Hutzlarz. And our coming Shiur will be in 2 weeks' time. Zaysa Torah Adam Kiyamus Ba'oil. It's not really a sugya that is directly associated with this week's parsha, but today we will be discussing a question that was relevant to me coming back from Chutzlarz to Eretz Yisrael. So recently in sad circumstances, and this is the topic we will be discussing today. But before we start learning, tonight's Shiur is dedicated Leilui Nishmosa Shel Isha HaChashuva Rochel Leah Bas Reb Chaim Moshe HaKoyen. Tonight is her yortzeit, and this is the mother of my dear friend Reb Chaim Olinsky, who is with us tonight. Reb Chaim is from Teaneck, New Jersey. Actually, recently he's more from Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, from Rehavia, than he is from Teaneck, New Jersey. A very, very dear friend, like a brother to me, and he takes care of our foundation in America. Shalom Manas Lakabel Pras, precious and dear friend. And tonight is the yortzeit of his late mother, whom I knew very well. It was a privilege to know your father and mother. And tonight is the yortzeit of Rochel Leah Bas Reb Chaim Moshe HaKoyen, Shetenuach B'Sholom HaMishkovesh. She should be a Meretz Yosha for the entire family, and you should know so much nachas and simcha with good health and shefa Rav. So the Torah we learn tonight is dedicated Leilui Nishmosa Shel Rochel Leah Bas Reb Chaim Moshe HaKoyen. So I said Torah ki Adam ki yom is ba'oil. So tonight we will be discussing some of the concepts and questions of aninos. When a person's close family members pass away, and the period between the demise and till after Stimas HaGodel, as the din of Oinon. Avela starts after the Kvura. From the person's demise till Stimas HaGodel, after the Kvura, he has the din of an Oinon. And my wife passed away in America, and I thought about the question, is there din aninas on a plane? And I paskin for myself, there is no din aninas on my plane, but I did have some sofeikos, which I will be discussing tonight. So two different concepts. Avelis is number one, aninas is number two. There is no avelis until a person is buried b'stimas hagoyel. And the very first Mishnah, third Perek in Mesechet Brochas, Daf Yud Zayin, Misha Meisai Mutal Lefonov, various dinim. The most relevant din is Potem and Mitzvahs. And there's a Machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. Is there only a Ptur, or rather an Isur? Tosfos learns from the Lashon of Rashi, Potem and Mitzvahs, but if he wishes, he is entitled to perform those mitzvahs. And according to Rashi, the origin and the basis of this halacha is primarily Yosik b'mitzvah Potem and Mitzvah. It is only the Ritva who is a das yochad in the sugi of Yosik b'mitzvah Potem and Mitzvah. The Ritva maintains it's not only a ptur, it's a prohibition. It's an isur. And if you are engaged in one mitzvah, it would be an isur, a prohibition, to stop and perform another mitzvah. But all the other Rishonim maintain it's a ptur, and that is Pashtus Loshen Chazal, who Yosik b'mitzvah Potem and Mitzvah. Nowhere do we find in the Gemara that is an isur. So the other Rishonim maintain your potter, but if you wish to move over from one mitzvah to another, you are entitled to do so. But Tosfos disagrees with Rashi, and at great length Tosfos explains, no, it is the source and the rationale of this halacha is not Oisig Mitzvah Potem and Mitzvah, but rather Kvoid HaMeis. So Chazal asked on a person to perform any other mitzvahs in order he should dedicate all his efforts and thoughts and energies to one objective, and that is taking care of the family member who it is his responsibility to be Yosik b'kvoid HaMeis, and therefore Tosfos maintains that that is a prohibition. Both Shittas are brought in the Shulchan Aruch as a machine Mem Aleph in Yoredea and Hilchos Avelus, And the vast majority of poskim paskin in accordance to the opinion of Tosis that an oinen is also b'kiyam mitzvahs and not only poto. It is not only that he is exempt from mitzvahs, it is a prohibition. And other halacha which is very clear, he is chayiv b'kol halavim shebetoira. He cannot eat macholas asuras. He definitely can't be mechal Shabbos. He cannot violate any of the isurim shel Torah. But he is potter from all the mitzvahs asay. So some argue, how do we define berachas hanahanan? Would that be like an iser or a mitzvahs asay? On one hand, Chazal say also lodam she'enim yonim ezebeli bracha. So that seems to indicate that it is a prohibition. But most of the poskim maintain no. It is essentially a mitzvahs asay. And Rashi explains in Brachas Lamed when Chazal say kilu goizel, it's not Kilu goizel es amokoim the hanoah, the benefit that he is taking without blessing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, without saying a bracha. Kilu goizel HaKadosh Baruch Hu es berachosoi. He is as if depriving HaKadosh Baruch Hu from the bracha. So lefi halacha, an oinen does not say berachas hanahanan. He's potem in a tefillah, potem in a kriya shema. He does not say berachas hanahanan. And those are the basic halachas of an oinen. So Tosfos at great length rejects Rashi's opinion that it's merely a ptur, and Tosfos argues it is an issa, and that is the opinion of the vast majority in poskim, while both halachas, both shittas, are brought in the Shulchan Aruch as I explained. There's a big chiddush in Noida B'Yehuda. The Noida B'Yehuda in Siman Reish, Yehuda Aleph, I think. The Noida B'Yehuda is in the first chelik. Soon we will be discussing Noida B'Yehuda number 2 in Tinyona Reish Yud Aleph Yoredeya. But in Orach Chaim Adura Kama Simchov Zayin, he deals with the question of a person that was an oinen one of the nights of Sevilas Woimo. Should he skip that night? And the Noida B'Yehuda is Machadash a big chiddush, and he says, an oinen is potem in a mitzvah, but any mitzvah which would have an effect when he will no longer be an oinen, he is not exempt from that mitzvah. And if he skips one night of Sevilas Woimo, that'll affect his ability to say the bracha on all the other nights, and therefore he is not exempt from this mitzvah of Sevilas Woimo. That's a big chiddush indeed, because right now he's an oinen. So why would that make a difference? The fact that if he skips tonight, he won't be able to say the other nights, but he is exempt, and he even has a prohibition of being Mekayim a mitzvah. So, my eitzah would be in a case like that. I know what I say now would seem to you be a big chiddush to you, and I can't really elaborate. Maybe we'll do so at some other time when we will be dealing with the gather of the mitzvah of Sevilas Woimo, because what I say now is based more on an analysis of the mitzvah of Sevilas Woimo than on the dinam of aninas. But I would say, if you're an oinen, one of the nights of Sfira, you count Sevilas Woimo with an explicit kavona not to be yotzei the mitzvah. And therefore, it's not an issur because I'm not yotzei the mitzvah, but it would help to enable me to count the additional days with a bracha. So I'm keeping you in suspense for quite a few months. And maybe if I will remember, I will elaborate on this big chiddush when we will be dealing with the sugya of Sevilas Woimo. But the Noida B'Yehuda is a chiddush, and the Noida B'Yehuda is based more on not the gather of Sevilas Woimo, but rather דיני אנינות. And he says, I am potter from mitzvahs right here and now, but any mitzvah which, if I skip it, it will affect the performance of other mitzvahs after my aninas is over, then I'm not potter from that mitzvah, and therefore it paskins, and oinen should say Sevilas Woimo. Would he say a bracha as well? No, even according to the Noida B'Yehuda, because the bracha is milta achrita. That is another mitzvah. The mitzvah of bracha is a mitzvah which is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, but a person definitely is yotzei Sevilas Woimo without saying the bracha. So even according to the Noida B'Yehuda, probably he would not say a bracha. The Noida B'Yehuda doesn't deal with this question, but I think even according to the Noida B'Yehuda, we say, okay, he needs to say Sevilas Woimo, but would he also say the bracha? The bracha of Sevilas Woimo is a different mitzvah. Sevilas Woimo is a mitzvah d'oraisa. The bracha is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. One is yotzei Sfira without the bracha. So I think even in accordance to the Noida B'Yehuda's forum, he wouldn't say the bracha. He would count without a bracha, and that would have no effect on the coming days. The fact that he didn't say a bracha tonight. But let's deal more with who is exempt from the din of Einan. So Tosfos quotes the Yerushalmi, Mosar lekatofim, no longer a din in Einan, and he is chayiv in all the mitzvahs. And Mosar lekatofim means that the family gave over the body of the deceased to people, and they take care of all the needs, anything that is associated with kvod hames. It is all their responsibility, and therefore there no longer would be any effect on kvod hames, and the honor of the deceased would not be diminished, and therefore he is no longer an einan, and he is chayav b'kol mitzvahs. So would there be aninas at all today? I mean, today Chevra Kedusha takes care of whatever needs to be taken care of. So why would there be a din aninas? So the post can make it very clear. No, Mosar lekatofim is a different concept. Mosar lekatofim means he gave over the body to others, and they decide on their own about everything, and the family no longer has any input or any worry. That is not the case today. The Chevra Kedusha, yes, they take care of all the practicalities, but it is the family in charge, and they consult the family, and the family organizes the levaya, and they decide who will be the baspidim, and therefore it is not the same as what we find in Yerushalmi and all the poskim shem Mosar lekatofim. There no longer is a din of aninas. Noide b'Yehuda madura tinyona. Siman Reish Yud Aleph in Yoredeya deals with the question of, in many European countries, there was a law that a person that passed away cannot be buried till 48 hours after his demise. And this law was based on more than a few cases in which people rose from the dead. No, not al yedei tchiyas hamesim, but people were mistakenly taken to be dead, and suddenly they came back to the land of the living. And therefore, in many European countries, the law was that you need to wait 48 hours till a doctor establishes the fact that a person is no longer alive until he is buried. And the question that the poskim deal with, is he an einan all those 48 hours? And the Noida B'Yehuda, there's many other great poskim l'dor say I'm dealing with this question. But the Noida B'Yehuda has two major chidushim in that shiva. Chidush number one, the din of Mosar lekatofim, that he no longer has a din an einan, is only if those katofim, melashon katef, chof tov pei yud mem. Mosar lekatofim is only if he has no intention of participating in the levaya. He stays home, and they will take the body elsewhere, to a different city, a different town, a different country to be buried, and he does not accompany them. He does not go along. He goes home, and therefore he no longer has a din of einan. Would he already have a din of aval? We're not going to discuss that tonight, but there are some situations in which he still is not an aval. But the moment he gave over the body and he will not go along, it is only then that he no longer has the din of an einan. But if he goes along with those katofim, even though it is no longer his responsibility, it is no longer his worry, but he still has a din of einan. That is chiddush number one. Most of the achronim do not agree with the Noida B'Yehuda, but that is a big chiddush, and that is the opinion of the Noida B'Yehuda. And chiddush number two in the Noida B'Yehuda is, he says, it all depends on kavura, not on other things that need to be taken care of. So if the law is that a person cannot be buried till 48 hours, there is no din of aninas. Other chronim argue, okay, so the burial could only be performed after 48 hours, but there are so many different things to be taken care of. The Noida B'Yehuda says no. Aninas depends only on kavura. And therefore, if we can't bury a person till 24 hours after his demise, till 48 hours after his demise, there is no din in aninas. The Chayodam is chaylik on both counts, on both points in the Noida B'Yehuda. And in Chayodam, he testifies that Mosar lekatofim and he did intend to go together with the family, and he was noyeg. He was Mekayim mitzvahs, and he was not noyeg din aninas. Contrary to the opinion of the Noida B'Yehuda, the Noida B'Yehuda says if he goes along, then he is chayav aninas, even though he bears no longer any responsibility. Chayav Adam is choylek, and that is also the opinion of the Mishnah Berurah Siman Ayin Aleph and דיני Krisha Masif Kuten Dalet, in accordance to the Chayav Adam, and the Ksav Sofer as well in Yored Deya Siman Kuf Pei Beis. So the Noida B'Yehuda argues, if the person cannot be buried, then he is chayiv ba'aninus, because according to the Noida B'Yehuda, it all depends on burial. And I think the Noida B'Yehuda is l'shitosei orech haim simen tov kuf mem ches, and that is a big chiddush of the Magen Avraham. So the Magen Avraham in Hilchos Chol HaMoed simen tov kuf mem ches and orech haim, the Magen Avraham writes, if a person cannot be buried because of a yoim id shel hanoichem, that means a holiday. So the non-Jews, probably the Christians, have a holiday in which burial is prohibited. Then the Magen Avraham says, B'yoim id shalorchem, there is no din of aninas. And the Dogal Mavovo says that we're dealing with Yom Tov. And a Yom Tov, you can do nothing which is associated with Kvod HaMeis. And that is why there is no din of aninus. But if it would be any other reason that one cannot be buried, a non-Jewish holiday, then there would be a chiyuv aninus. Yes. I confused the Noida B'Yehuda with the Chayyim a few minutes ago. The Noida B'Yehuda argues that even though one cannot be buried, but because there are other things to be taken care of, he still has a din of an oinen. And the Chayyim is the one that says he's potamaninas. And the Chayyim says he was Mekayim mitzvahs in that case, and many argued against him, but that is his opinion. According to the Chayyim, it all depends on kvura. And if a person cannot be buried, then there is no din aninas. Then the Buddha says, as long as he has different things to take care of, he is an oinon. And I think the Noida B'Yehuda l'shitosoi. The Noida B'Yehuda has a goas on Dalat Chalke Shulchan named Dogul Meravovo. And Simen Tov Kuf Mem Ches, when the Magen Avraham says, in a non-Jewish holiday, when they prohibit burial, there is no din of aninas. And the Dogel Mavovo says, we're speaking with Yom Tov Sheni. And the Ksav Sofer wonders on the Dogel Mavovo from another Magen Avraham, Simen Tov Reish Tzadik Vav. Tov Reish Tzadik Vav is דיני Purim. And the Noida B'Yehuda, the Magen Avraham writes in Tov Reish Tzadik Vav, in those kehilas in which the Chaver Kiddush did not work on Purim and people were not buried, there is no din of aninas. So Purim, even though they didn't bury, but still you could take care of different things. And the Magen Avraham says there is no din aninus. I think those achronim that understood that the Dogel Mavovo is explaining the Noida B'Yehuda had a misunderstanding. How could the Dogel Mavovo explain the Magen Avraham when the Magen Avraham explicitly in Simen Tov Kuf Mem Ches speaks about Yoim Id Shel Nochrim Shel Goyim, and the Dogel Mavovo says we're dealing with a Yom Tov. Yom Tov is not Yom Id Shel Nochrim. So I think the Dogel Mavovo disputes the opinion of the Magen Avraham, and he writes no. Shabbos and Yom Tov, there is no din of aninas, because Shabbos and Yom Tov, you cannot do anything that is associated with Kvod HaMeis. Shabbos and Yom Tov, you have a mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov and an Oinik Shabbos, and that is why there is no din of aninas. But when dealing with a Goyish holiday, Okay, so we can't bury, but there are still 1,000 other things to be taken care of, and therefore he does have a din of an oinen. So the Mogan of Rome l'shitosai, if they don't bury in Purim, there is no din aninas. Non-Jewish, a Goyish holiday, there is no din of aninas. Because the Mogan of Rome maintains it all depends on Kvura. And any day in which we cannot do the Kvura, there is no din of aninas. And the Noida B'Yehuda has a different opinion. In Dodon Avova Semetov Kof Memches, and in that Shuva which I just quoted, Tin Yoneri Adeas Emereish Yudalav, and therefore the Noida B'Yehuda maintains, even if the law is, we will not be able to bury the mace till 24 hours or 48 hours, he still has a din of an oinen, because it is his responsibility and it is incumbent upon him to take care of other things and other aspects that need to be taken care of, and according to the Noida B'Yehuda, he still is an oinen. Most of the achronim are choilek on the Noida B'Yehuda, and they say that if kvura cannot be performed, there is no din of aninas. Rebbe Kiva Eger, Chelik Dalatzim and Pei Dalad, and also Agos Rebbe Kiva Eger, Shulchan Aruch Chaim, Maramshik, Simen Shim Mem, quoting the Chassam Sofer, arguing the Chassam Sofer is choilek on the Noida B'Yehuda, and the Chassam Sofer maintains, if kvura cannot be done, there is no din in aninas. An interesting point, and it is noteworthy, the Ksav Sofer and the Maramshik both deal with this question. Maramshik Yoredei Shin Mem, Ksav Sofer Yoredei Kuf Pei Beis. The Maramshik quotes the opinion of the Chassam Sofer against the Noida B'Yehuda, and the Ksav Sofer does not bring the opinion of his father. To me it is clear from analyzing and learning many tshuvas of these great Gedolim that I think the Maramshik was far more familiar with the Chassam Sofer's Torah and Menogam than the Chassam Sofer's own son, the Ksav Sofer. The Ksav Sofer was relatively young when his great father passed away. And the Maramshik quotes the Chassam Sofer more extensively than the Ksav Sofer does. And in this halacha, it's an interesting ha'ara. The Maramshik quotes the Chassam Sofer that's choilek on the Noida B'Yehuda, and the Ksav Sofer deals with the same question, and he does not quote the opinion of the Ksav Sofer, of the Chassam Sofer, which is interesting. Another halacha that the achronim deal with is the question of a person that is in jail. And going back hundreds of years, when you were in custody by the Goyim, it was, I think, far more unpleasant than it is today. If you need to be in jail, the place to be is in Eretz Yisrael, not in America or anywhere else in the world. After all, this is a Yiddish Medina. So I'm not very happy about it, but in the prison system in Israel, we have yeshivas and very active shuls and shtiblach and minyanim. Should we be proud of it? Maybe, maybe not. But the place to be if you are locked up is in Israel. I know so many people that went into jail, Amaratzim, and they came out Talmidei Chachamim. Amazing. I know a person that got a notice that he's going to be sent home next week, and he said, "Oh, I still need to finish Masechet Sanhedrin. At home I won't learn. Here I have a Daf Yomi, a great Maggid Shiur." So wasn't that way going back many years ago. So the Maram Rutenberg passed away in prison. And the authorities asked for a lot of money. And the Maram Rutenberg said in his tzavor that ransom should not be paid. And he was quite a period in prison, and the Rosh Paskin that there is no din of aninas. So this halacha is brought in Shulchan Aruch, that if a person is in jail, and he can't go out of jail to take care of the deceased, was a close family member, he's not an oinen. And if the person, the mace, is in jail, and the authorities are not releasing his body, once again, there is no din of aninas. So regarding halacha number one, if the ovel, if the family member, the living one, is in jail, and there's no chance of him getting out, there's no din of aninas. Maybe today the halacha would be different if you have email and and SMS and telephones. But in those days, you were in custody and you had nothing to do about it. And therefore, he doesn't have a din of anoinen because kvod mace is not upon him. If the mace died in custody, then if there is a chance to have the body released immediately, then there is a din of aninas. But if it is clear the authorities will not let the body be removed from prison, then once again, Shulchan Aruch says there is no din of aninas. So we dealt with various different questions, starting off with Shabbos and Yom Tov. Shabbos and Yom Tov, there definitely is no din of aninas because you can do nothing that is affected or associated with kvod mace. Mosel katofim. Once again, as I explained, the Yerushalmi Mosel katofim means that you gave it over to caretakers and you have no input. You have nothing to say. According to the Noidi Beauty, you're not even going along with the mitzvah. You're staying home and they are taking the mitzvah to be buried elsewhere. Question number 3. When the law prohibits burial, and that is a machlokes between the Mogen Avraham, who says there is no din aninas, and the Noidi Beauty says even if he can be buried, but there are other things to be taken care of, and there is a din of aninas. Jail, when either the body is in jail or the living are in jail, no din aninas. But that is only im nisyayeshu melekavroi. That is the lesson of the poskim and the rishonim. As long as we are busy trying to either get the person out of jail or to get the body out of jail, then the din aninas would apply. So after all these hagdamas, so what is the din when a person is sitting on a plane? So my psak is when a person is sitting on a plane, there would be no din aninas because there is nothing you could do. There is nothing you could do. You don't have your phone. There is nothing you could do till the flight reaches its destination. So when you are on a plane, I davened on the plane, and I definitely said brachos while I was on the plane bringing my wife back home to Eretz Yisrael. But I was mesupik, what do I do with tefillin? Because tefillin has a special halacha, and ovel b'yoyim rishon potem and tefillin. And that is because the Novi Yecheskel, we find pe'echo chavush olecho, and Chazal learned from this posuk that an ovel doesn't put on tefillin because tefillin is pe'eo, and an ovel is anything but pe'eo. He is magoyel ba'efer and not pe'er tachas efer. So ovel b'yom rishon is potem and tefillin. So how do we relate to an oinen who on one hand is not an ovel, but he is on the stage between the demise of his loved one and the burial? So would that be less than an ovel b'yom rishon? Tzorech. And I did not find a clear source of one of the poskim dealing with this question. If any one of you will find a source, I would be more than happy to be aware of it. So I put on tefillin without a bracha. Even though I did say all the other brachas, but because I wasn't mesupik whether an oinen, b'yoyim hamisa, or b'yoyim hakvira should put on tefillin. So on one hand, he's not an ovel yet, and in my opinion, while he's on the plane, he is not an oinen, because there is nothing he could do. It's like Shabbos and Yom Tov. There is nothing he could do to enhance or take care of the mace. He can't use his phone, he can't send emails, and therefore he would not have a din of an oinen. But regarding tefillin, wasn't clear to me, so regarding tefillin, I put on tefillin without a bracha.
Isn't there always a din of shmira? Even on Shabbos, you have to worry about shmira.
Well, the concept of shmira, by halachic definition, is shmira minu achbarim, and from animals. They should not harm the body or bring the body to the bezoyin. Shmira is not about saying tehillim. Many people say tehillim when they're doing shmira on a niftar, but it is a big question whether we could say tehillim in the presence of a niftar. So definitely not within the Daled Amis, because within the Daled Amis of a body, we don't perform mitzvahs. We don't learn Torah, we don't say tefillas. So some gedolim, some place can maintain, if you're chutz medal adamas, you could say Tehillim, and you should say Tehillim le'ilu nishmosoi. Others argue you need to leave the room. But the concept of halachic shmira is only when you are in the immediate presence of a body, and it is all about just seeing to it that animals don't harm the body. So when you're on a plane, there's no concept, no halachic concept of shmira. Saying Tehillim, and Oinen L'choire cannot say Tehillim because he cannot daven. So some say, because this Tehillim is entirely L'chavoid HaMeis, then you could say Tehillim. Which brings us to another discussion, which is a very interesting discussion. Rabbi Eliyahu Ragolar was a Talmud of Reb Chaim Volozhiner, and he has a very important sefer, a very well-known sefer. Poskim know the sefer, Shalosh Shuvas Yad Eliyahu. And his Savoa is printed in the introduction of that sefer. And he writes a big chiddush. He writes his children, Shona Rishona, there are many sgulas. You say Kaddish, you say Baruch Hu, you daven for the Amid. But you should not have any kavanah that the Kaddish or davening for the Amid or the maftir should be to the benefit of the niftar. If you have such a kavanah, then you lost it all. And your Kaddish and your Baruch and your maftir is worthless, because then it's Shalom Lishma. So he says, the benefit that the neshama has when children say Kaddish or daven for the Amid or Oila Mafter is automatic. It has nothing to do with the kavanah of those children. And if the children have a kavanah that what they do should be for the benefit of the niftar, then the Kaddish is worthless, the Maftir is worthless, it means nothing, because then it's Shalom Lishma. That is what Rabbi Eliyahu Ragolar writes. And I cannot but disagree with them. And I think when the Ramo writes in Siman Shin Ayin Vav, Nagu loimer Kaddish al oviv ve'imoi, this formulation, al oviv ve'imoi, means we say Kaddish for our parents. And that is our intention. In many Mishnayos, I have a Mishnayos at home. At the beginning of Mishnayos, there is a tefillah that one should say before learning Mishnayos for an iftar, and a tefillah that we say after learning Mishnayos for an iftar. So me and my family come together every Motzei Shabbos, and we learn Mishnayos, say the Taharas. I hope we'll finish say the Taharas within Shona Rishona. Baruch Hashem, we have 4 Siyam Mishnayos to the Shloshim and 4 Siyam Ashas Bavli to the first year. So in many Mishnayos we have a tefillah. I don't know who composed that tefillah, but there is another tefillah in Sefer Leshon Lemudim that was composed by the Ben Ish Chai. And the Ben Ish Chai actually composed a tefillah, which is a beautiful tefillah, in which we clearly ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have rachamim v'chesed and tochas on Nishmas, Ovi, Ploini ben Ploini, Imi, Ploinis ben Ploini. So the Ben Ish Chai wrote a tefillah. So we clearly not only have in mind, but verbalize and say what we learn should be to the benefit of his neshama. So would there be a difference between davening and learning? And would the Kpeid of Rabbi Eliyahu Ragolar only be davening? Why would there be a difference? I don't see any difference between Kaddish or learning. This is a mitzvah, that's a mitzvah. So why would there be a difference between one and the other? Sefer Salmas Chaim, Siman Ayin Dalet. I don't know whether you're familiar with this sefer. Very peculiar and interesting sefer. Salmas Chaim was written by one of the great Talmidei Chacham in Yerushalayim 100 years ago. His name was Reb Shlomo Sobol. And it is questions he presented to Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, and the tshuvas he got from Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. And the sefer is very strange to many people, because the tshuvas are one-liners. Today, Gedolim have tshuvas one word, not one line. I don't have a very high regard to this firm that quotes for us from Gedolim Ken, Lo, Efsher, Ulai. I don't think those svarim are to be taken very seriously. I'm not aware that the Noid Abiyud and the Chsam Sofer, the Radbaz and the Rashba gave such shuvas. Yes, no, maybe, perhaps. I do know, I don't know. But the Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld wrote one-liners, which is also strange. So the story, what I heard from Ziknei Yerushalayim, Rav Shlomo Sovel, every day when Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld came to shul, they davened in the same minyan. So we wrote shaylas on little pieces of paper and tucked them under the talus of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. And before Rabbi Yosef Chaim left the shul and went home, he looked at those shaylas and on those same pieces of paper wrote his intuitive response on the spot. So the shaylas are one line and the tshuvas are one line. So in Siman Ayin Daled and Salmas Chaim, he asked Rabbi Yosef Chaim exactly this question. He asked him, when we say Kaddish for a niftar, should we have in mind that we're saying the Kaddish for his benefit, for his Ilu Neshama, or maybe that would be considered Shalom Neshama? And Rabbi Yosef Chaim doesn't quote any sources, but he writes, well, Kibbutz is a mitzvah, so why would that detract from another mitzvah? You're doing it for your father, and that's a mitzvah, so why would that be a problem? That is what Rabbi Yosef Chaim responds. So Rabbi Yosef Chaim's instinctive response, which is definitely important, it's his Das Torah, and Rabbi Yosef Chaim of Baghdad, who was the Ben Ish Chai, and he wrote a tefillah that we are to say when we learn Mishnayos for a niftar. And I think Mishnayos and Kaddish would be the same. And I don't really understand Rabbi Lior Rogaler's argument. There's a Gemara in Pesachim Daf Ches, and Toises in numerous sources of Shas, over the Zohar Daf Yutes and other places. The Gemara says, everybody knows and remembers this Maimar. Hu oimer, sele zele tzedok al menash yichye beni, o al menash eska l'chay olam haba, arei ze tzaddik gomer. So a person gives tzedakah, and he stipulates, al menash yichye beni, al menash eska l'chay olam haba, arei ze tzaddik gomer. Rashi writes, and he is not considered a person that does a mitzvah shalom l'shma. No, he does the mitzvah l'shma, but he also wants to reap the benefit. And Rashi is interesting. But if he also wants to reap benefits, so why would it still be considered a mitzvah l'shma? And why is he at tzaddik gomer? Tosfos, in various different sources in Shas, as I said, elaborates more. And Tosfos asks from the very first Perek in Masechet Davos, Perek Aleph Mishnah Gimel, Al tiyu kavodim ha'misham shemisarav al manas lekabel pras. Heyu kavodim ha'misham shemisarav shalom manas lekabel pras. So how could a person say al manas sheyichye b'ni? That is al manas lekabel pras. So Tosfos says, the chasoren of al manas lekabel pras is only when a person is makayim a mitzvah ach v'rak, only because he wants reward. And if he wouldn't get that reward, he would be toya la rishonos, toya u'mischaret. So that mitzvah is really shalom l'shma. But if a person would be makayim the mitzvah regardless, and he is machaven l'shem shemaim, then he is entitled to also plead with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, please, al manas sheyichye b'ni, al manas she'eska l'chayin lo. So many times in my shiurim I apologize and I would say, if I would live 850 years ago, this is what I would say. If I would have a chance, maybe what I say would have significance and it would find its place into some shas, this is what I would say. There's a big difference. What is he asking for? So, Oimer, Sele Zula Tzedoka, Al Menas, I should be rich, I should be powerful. They should fire the CEO because he's going on my nerves. A person gives tzedakah. Al menas, I should get a cruise around the world for a reasonable price. That definitely would not be at tzaddik gomer. That definitely would not be at tzaddik gomer. But what is he asking for? Al menas sheyichye b'ni. Pikuach nefesh doiche kol ha'torah kol. Al manas sheyichye b'ni is the greatest mitzvah in the Torah. I wrote in Minchas Osher Chumash Bamidbar, I don't remember which siman, maybe Chav Gimel on Parshas Ba'loischo. that besides the general mitzvah of tefillah, there's a special mitzvah, le'espalal ala choilim. And we learned this from Moshe Rabbeinu. When Miriam was mitzaras, Moshe turns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kein, no, Rafah, no, la. So it's a mitzvah to daven for choilim. It's a mitzvah to try to heal choilim. So what's wrong with a person asking Kadosh Baruch Hu, what's wrong with a person asking Kadosh Baruch Hu in the merit of the tzedakah I give? Al manashiyich yebeni. Al manashiyich yebeni is something we need to do everything within our power to salvage a person's life. So why shouldn't he say Selazet tzedakah manashiyich yebeni? And the same, al manashe eskala chayolam abo. You know, other peoples and religions have a crazy olam haba. Our olam haba is nothing about Gashmias. Our olam haba is tzadikim yoshvim v'atroseim v'rosheim v'nenem eziva shchino. And that is the tachlis abriya. So what's wrong with a person asking Kodesh Baruch Hu, I want to be zoichet to chay olam haba, I want to be zoichet to keves alakim. I am in the process only because ultimately I want to make it into the Traklan and I want to be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it all depends what type of a pras you expect. And when Chazal say, Al tihi kavod ha'misham shem sarav ha'manas lakav pras, that is a pras of money and power and affluence and taivas and yes, that is not something you should ask in reward for your avodas okel. But when a person asks a Kodesh Baruch Hu, Menashe Yechibini, Menashe Eskala Chayelam Abo, those are the greatest aspirations and the most positive bakoshas that a person could ask from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So that definitely would not diminish his mitzvah. And I say the same when a person says Kaddish le'ilu nishmas Odam Yisrael. If it's a father and it's a mother, it's a mitzvah of kibbud av. Even if it's not a father and a mother, it's a chesed. It's a chesed we do im achayim ve'im ameisim. So that does not in any way detract or diminish the schus of a kaddish, or learning mishnayos, or davening for the Omed, or any other mitzvah below kedivrei Yad Eliyahu. So the Yad Eliyahu was a Godel Shebigdolim, going back almost 200 years. And I have a feeling the Yad Eliyahu is inspired by Reb Chaim Volozhin, and Reb Chaim Volozhin naturally is inspired by the Gro. So in Shan Aleph and Nefesh HaChaim, there's a very interesting Perek. And the Nefesh HaChaim writes that all the kavonas we have in Tfilas Amida and Shemor Nesra should only be Kvod Shemayim and nothing for yourself. Nothing for yourself. It is all about Kvod Shemayim. And he does write that the Gemara says that a person could be Moisev Bekoshes Me'ena Brocha. But that is not for Yeshorim Biliboisam. And to me this was always a Pele. So it's a Sif in Shulchan Aruch and a din in the Gemara that you could be Moisev Bebrochas and Soyis. Is that a B'di'evet? Is that only for the simpletons? What, the Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch don't talk to tzaddikim? Shnois Eliyahu in Brochas Perikei, when the Gemara says Chasidim Rashoyna and Shuachas Lifnei Tfilos and Shuach Lachtos and Kedei Sheyechavnu Libam L'Shamayim, Shnois Eliyahu, the Gemara says Sheyechavnu Libam L'Shamayim means everything should be Kvod Shemayim. And no personal bakoshas, only in Elokai Nitzoyo. And to me that is also, what an unbelievable chiddush. Elokai Nitzoyo is not an integral part of the Shemor Nesra. It's tachnunim, which are not a chiyuv at all. And that is where you ask for personal bakoshas. Once again, the Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch says you add your personal bakoshas in brochas or in tzoyos. If you have a choyle, you ask in the fu'enu. If you're short on parnasa, you ask in baruch oleinu. If you're not successful in your mental endeavors, you ask in atu chaynein. That's the Gemara, and that's, in my understanding, there is no greater Kabbalah's oil malchus shemayim than bakoshas tzrochim. And that is what Rabbeinu Yonah says in Brochas Dav Dalet. So I know what I say goes against the Gra and Reb Chaim Volozhiner, but I have Rabbeinu Yoina and the Mabit on my side, so I'm not intimidated. So Rabbeinu Yoina says in Brochas Dav Daled, "Da soimech geula letfila muftach lo sheben oilam haba." Rabbeinu Yoina explains why. Because geula is Yetzias Mitzrayim. Tefillah is avdus. Just like an Eved pleads with his master, please give me food, give me clothing, give me a blanket. An Eved has nothing of his own. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu oitzionu mitzrayim al menasheni aloi la'avodim, and that is why a soimach geula letfula muftach lo sheben olam haba, because the essence of Yetzias Mitzrayim is avdus, and the essence of avdus is tefillah, bakoshes tzrochim. And Kabbalas Avdus is Kabbalas Olam Malchus Shemayim. And the Mabit in Beis Orokim says, Odecho kol bosor yovoyu. The Mabit explains that we turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu not only for our ruchniistic tzrochim, also for our gashmiistic tzrochim. And that is the kavanah of Odecho kol bosor yovoyu. Tzorchei ha-bosor. And that is Kabbalah Zol Malchus Shemayim, and that is exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us. The awareness and the recognition that we can take nothing by ourselves. V'yodato she'Hashem Elokecho hu ha'noisen lechu koyach la'aseh schoyel. And we can achieve nothing in our own power, and it is only miyatcho ha'gedoylo ha'maleo v'arachavo. That is the most sublime kavanah. That is the essence, the purity of Kabbalah Zol Malchus Shemayim, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yes, Reb Chaim Volozhiner says all the brochas are formulated b'loshen rabim. Poshet that they're formulated b'loshen rabim, because if everybody in your family is well, you're davening for all the cholim of Beis Yisrael. And if you have parnasa b'koved, you're davening for others. And that is why the tefillas are loshen rabim. You don't need to ask for the force as everybody is well. And that is why the Gemara says, and the Rambam, and the Tu, and the Shulchan Aruch, but if you do have a choile b'toich habayis, or you have parnasa problems, yes, you should ask. So, the Gra is Kodesh Kodeshim, and so is Reb Chaim Volozhiner, but I think that is not the mainstream. And what I understand from Rabbeinu Yoina and from the Mabit and Pashtus HaShulchan Aruch and Pashtus HaGemara, that is what the brochas and tzuyers are for. Yes, each and every individual is supposed to ask from HaKadosh Baruch Hu his personal needs. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is happy to fulfill our personal needs. Rabbeinu Yoina and Mishlei, and that is an other Rabbeinu Yoina, and the posek b'chol drachecho deyehu v'hu yash orchosecho. Rabbeinu Yoina explains that a person needs to turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu not only for faithful things in his life. He's going into the desert and he doesn't know whether he'll make his way home. He's making a shidduch. He's investing all his fortune and taking huge loans. He's investing $100 million. It's a make it or break it. No. You're going to the shuk to buy tomatoes. Ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You should find the most beautiful tomatoes for the most reasonable price. That is what Rabbeinu Yoina says, B'chol druchecho deyehu yashor chosecho. People have a mistake. They don't want to be matriach HaKadosh Baruch Hu with their petty needs. So they turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu only when things are so important. No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to talk to him about your tomatoes. Yes. And you should turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'chol druchecho deyehu. And that is the real deveikus. When a person recognizes and is aware that he needs HaKadosh Baruch Hu's help for everything, for every endeavor. Dava koten kedava gol. That is avodas elokim. And that is shelo kedivrei Agra b'shnois Eliyahu and Reb Chaim Volozhiner. So I think that Rabbi Eliyahu Ragalar, when he goes to the extreme and he says, when you say Kaddish, on a father or a mother, don't have them in mind. You can't have them in mind. It needs to be only l'shem shamayim. It is the same mahalach. And I say, no, of course, you have them in mind, and you turn to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. In the schus of the Kaddish, I say, and in the schus of the Mishnayos, I learn, yes, you should give a ilui neshama leploini ben ploini, leploinis ben ploini, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that is the derech hamelech, and that is minhag haolam. So to say, today we discussed some different halachas. Started off with aninos, and then we spoke about what children could do and what people could do for others, neshamas that need our help, and we learn for them and we daven for them. And so what is the proper way and what is the proper approach? Chazal say in Divrei Torah Miskayim Ela b'mishem meimes atzmoi aleihem. And the Chazon Ish writes in a letter, meimes atzmoi aleihem doesn't mean death. Meimes atzmoi means the essence of life. It means foregoing what most people consider as the pleasures of life. Meimes atzmoi aleihem means Yegias HaTorah. It means Amal HaTorah. It means what Chazal say in Perek Vav of Masechet Tovos, Kachi darka shel Torah pas b'melech toichol u'mayim b'mesura tishta v'ala oretz tishan v'chai tzar tichyo u'b'torah ha'omer v'imatu oiseken ashrecho b'yolam hazeh v'toiv l'chol yolam habo. So many times I say to my talmidim, pas b'melech and mayim b'mesura are relative concepts. They're not fixed. Every generation has its own Pasuk Melech and its own Mayim B'Mesura. And in our age of plenty, in our world of abundance, if between the Pas and the Melech there is a layer of butter or vegetable spread or peanut butter or mayonnaise, some salad, still considered pas b'melech in our day and age. And mayim b'mesura would probably include some orange juice, some soft drinks, here and then a shluck of whiskey, still would be considered mayim b'mesura tishta. But the most important thing is b'torah ato omer, and that applies to every generation. And then Rambam writes in Perek Gimel of Hilchos Talmud Torah, Shelo ya'ale b'da'atoi, a person shouldn't even think that he could be a roidev ta'anugois and achieve greatness in Torah. Those two don't go together. So there is the amazing story in Shabbos Kuf Mem Zayin about Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. Rabbi Elazar ben Arach was one of the greatest Tanoim. And he went to a resort, and he went to a spa. Well, many Gedolim went to Marimbad and to Carlsbad. So Rabbi Elazar ben Arach went to a summer resort, to a spa, and he went to the baths. And when he came home, he opened the Chumash, Parshas Bo. Obviously, he wanted to be Mavased Shnai Mikaveach HaTargam, and instead of a Chodesh Zelachem, Yatsa lo Hachareish Hayalibam. He confused the Dalad with the Reish, the Yud with the Zayin, the Chaf with a Beis, and instead of a Chodesh Zelachem, what he said was Hachareish Hayalibam. It's an amazing story. We know people that are kol kulam taiva. That's all what they have in their heads. They definitely cannot be great scholars. They cannot be gedolei Torah, but they still know Ivra. They still know how to read a siddur, how to say a doinolam. They know how to read a posuk in Chumash. So the greatest of Tanoim went to a spa, and he could no longer read a posuk in Chumash. That doesn't make sense. So to me it is clear, no, that wasn't natural. That wasn't nature. That was an ois min hashamayim. Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest of men, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives them the option. Take a wish and it will be fulfilled. What do you want? And I promise to fulfill your dreams and your wishes and your aspirations. What does Shlomo ask? V'notato la'avdecho leiv shomeya. If there is a leiv shomeya, then there must be a leiv cheresh. That is not a leiv shomeya. Ze le'umas ze. So Rabbi Elazar ben Arach went to a spa. Min hashamayim, they told him, no, this won't go. This is not for you. You cannot afford this. Because ultimately, what this leads to is not a leiv shomeya that Shlomo Melech asked for, but the opposite. This leads to charshes a leiv. So it was min hashamayim. I assume that coming back from the spa, you still could talk to him about every tzois and every nesivus. And you could still, talk to him about any sugya in Shas. But min hashamayim, he wanted to read the Pasuk HaChodesh Lochem, and what he actually read was Acharesh Hoya Libam, and 1,000 red lights flashed before his eyes, and he understood what the message is. This is something you as a Gadol B'Yisrael cannot afford. Leave it to others. Your Torah needs to be total and pure. So this is something you cannot afford. Stay away. Your place is a bismedish. And don't ever think you're going to be losing out. That our lot should be Omer Torah and Yegias Torah b'miut ta'anug, and let us keep our Pas B'Melech, our modern version of Pas B'Melech, to a minimal, to the minimum necessity, and dedicate our energies and koiches to grow in Torah and to teach Torah, and we should always be zeichem to learn and to teach b'simcha v'nachas, and we should share b'soides toivos, and we should share simchas, and we should be zeicha b'kol b'yameinu to be as Mashiach tzedkeinu v'simchas olam al roisham b'meheru v'yameinu amen. For the late